Banking, Housing, and Urban Affairs will come to order. Welcome to the witnesses. We're operating in a hybrid format. The two witnesses are in person. Members have the option to appear in person or virtually. They know the rules. I won't repeat them. Our speaking order will be as usual by seniority, the members who've checked in before the gavel came down, either in person or virtually. The committee today considers the nomination of two highly qualified women, one to be president and chair, Rita Jo Lewis, to be president chair of the Export-Import Bank, and Elizabeth de Leon Bargava, to be assistant secretary for administration, Department of Housing and Urban Development. We congratulate the nominees. We thank them for appearing. We welcome their families and friends in attendance. Both nominees are highly qualified, ready to work for the American people, for their jobs, their businesses, their homes. As president of the five-member EXIM board, Ms. Lewis would be responsible for leading our country's official export credit agency as it supports U.S. workers and manufacturers in my state of Ohio, the ranking member state of Pennsylvania, and throughout our country in the face of competition often unfair from nations like China. These nominees are trailblazers in their own right. Ms. Bargava was the first Latina to serve as Deputy Secretary for Labor for New York State. Ms. Lewis would be the first Black woman to lead EXIM. It's a welcome change. We in this committee recognize, many of us do, that our government works better when it looks like America, bringing in different viewpoints and attitudes and mores, and it works best if it reflects the diversity of American manufacturers and small businesses. A proud native of Statesboro, Georgia, the same state as my mother, also from a small town that many people haven't heard of, if I could say that, Ms. Lewis. She has more than 25 years of distinguished leadership experience, international affairs, law, and public policy. Ms. Lewis, we have two members of this committee from Georgia. To my knowledge, other than the Agriculture Committee, it's been the only time that two members in the same party have been on a committee in the Senate at the same time. Perhaps that's not true, but in my observation, it has been. Ms. Lewis serves as Senior Fellow and Director of Congressional Affairs of the German Marshall Fund, a nonpartisan policy organization dedicated to strengthening transatlantic cooperation. At the German Marshall Fund, Ms. Lewis leads bipartisan exchanges for members of Congress. She served at the State Department in the Obama years, helped build and support relationships among this department, state and local governments and foreign counterparts. If confirmed, she'll head an agency vital to manufacturing jobs in Ohio. Yesterday, I was at a place called Magnet, one of the innovative manufacturing sort of agencies, associations, workplaces in Ohio. We talked about the importance of export-import. There are 100 export credit agencies and credit programs around the world that support foreign manufacturers. China's export finance activity is larger than all the export credit provided by the G7 countries combined. We can expect China to continue using export credit as a weapon to win manufacturing business in critical sectors. Ohio jobs depend on your success, Ms. Lewis. Assistant Secretary for Administration, HUD, Ms. Bargava would be responsible for ensuring the department has talented and dedicated public servants and able to meet our most pressing housing challenges. She would oversee offices responsible for recruitment and staffing, procurement, and providing administrative support for HUD employees. She has extensive experience at the highest levels of state and local governments. For 5 years, she was Deputy Secretary for Labor in New York. She managed a portfolio of agencies with a budget exceeding $5 billion and overseeing 5,000 employees, served as the first Deputy Chief of Staff to the Speaker of the New York City Council. She managed a staff of 300. She served as Deputy Commissioner for the city's Department of Small Businesses, served in the State Office of the Attorney General. We're glad to have you here too today, Ms. Bargava. We're grateful for both of you for your service in the past. We're grateful you want to serve here also. I look forward to your testimony, and I would offer that if at the beginning of your testimony or any time during it, you can certainly feel free to introduce family members. Ranking Member Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Bargava and Ms. Lewis, welcome to the committee. I, too, would like to commend both of you for your longstanding commitment to public service, and I thank you for your willingness to continue that service in these new capacities. First, Ms. Bhargava has been nominated to serve as the Assistant Secretary for Administration at HUD. HUD would play a central role in the Democrats' $3.5 trillion, or however many trillion it ends up being, reckless tax and spend bill, which is currently being negotiated. The plan includes $300+ billion for new spending for housing programs. Billions of this aid is not targeted. Some of these programs have weak means testing and loopholes. There are no work requirements, even for able-bodied adults with no dependents. They and many people of above-average income will do quite well under some of these programs. Let's consider several of the bill's flawed housing provisions. To start with, there's the bill's $80 billion for renovating public housing. Now, it's interesting. The Biden administration didn't even request that amount. The Biden administration requested only $40 billion. So why does the bill have $80 billion? Well, it just so happens that the New York City Housing Authority wanted $40 billion all for itself. But our Democratic colleagues couldn't very well pass a bill that sends 100% of public housing money to New York City. That'd be a bit of a problem for the 48 Democratic senators who don't represent New York. So instead, Senator Schumer promised to, quote, double down, end quote, on the administration's proposal and, quote, use all of my power as majority leader to secure a funding package that can restore and transform the New York City Housing Authority, end quote. And lo and behold, we now have $80 billion, substantially all of which will not be distributed using the existing formula, but rather by executive fiat. It certainly looks a lot like Senator Schumer securing a $40 billion earmark, or as I like to call it, a shoe mark. As a result, it appears likely that half of all the bill's public housing dollars will go to a housing authority plagued by scandals, bribery, and chronic mismanagement. It's also concerning to see Democrats intent on spending billions more on outdated public housing projects. Public housing projects concentrate poverty and crime and trap families in generational cycles of dependency and despair. 2 decades ago, both parties recognized their flaws, and that's why Congress placed a cap on the number of public housing units on a bipartisan basis with the Faircloth Amendment. But now our Democrats' colleagues' reconciliation bill would effectively repeal this cap so the new public housing units can go up. There's also the $9 billion in down payment assistance for first-time and first-generation homebuyers, except that you can qualify for this money even if you or your parents previously had a home. So much for first-time and first-generation. Oh, and you don't have to be low income to qualify. In areas like Washington, D.C., a person earning $180,000 a year could qualify. That covers pretty much every single member of Congress. Worst of all, the program is a thinly disguised attempt to give assistance to home buyers based more on the color of their skin than their financial need, something that's very likely unconstitutional. Democrat Chairwoman Maxine Waters has said the objective of this program is to help address the racial wealth and home ownership gaps. And thus the bill directs HUD to allocate funds in part based on, quote, racial disparities in home ownership rates, end quote. Now, let me be clear, increasing wealth and home ownership rates among minorities is a perfectly fine goal, but designing race-based policies and benefits is not. Now I want to turn to the Exim Bank. Ms. Lewis has been nominated to serve as president and chair of Exim. I continue to remain deeply skeptical of Exim and its role in the American and global economy. Taxpayers ultimately bear the consequences of undue risks taken by Exim. And if we want to promote domestic manufacturing and increase competitiveness of U.S. exports, as I do, what we need to do is create a favorable climate by maintaining low taxes, provide regulatory certainty, and cut red tape to attract capital formation. To claim that Exim is needed to achieve these goals simply defies the facts. The vast majority of American exports get done without any Exim support. We've reviewed annual data, export data, from 2007 through 2020. In that period, the highest percent of U.S. exports using Exim financing was in 2012, and it was only 2.3%. And that was when Exim had everything going for it. It was fully operational, it had a quorum on its board, it had not reached its lending limit. The reality is, the United States is the world's second largest exporter of goods behind only China. We lead the world in value-added exports, and we do it almost entirely without Exim financing. Not only is Exim financing not needed, but it's often nothing more than crony capitalism providing taxpayer-financed subsidies to some of the world's largest companies who have plenty of access to private capital. Consider Ex-Im's recent deal guaranteeing an $82 million loan from J.P. Morgan to Qantas Airline for the purpose of buying jets from General Electric. So let's see. J.P. Morgan is the largest bank in America. Qantas is the largest airline in Australia. And GE is one of the largest industrial companies in the world. They do not need American taxpayers' subsidies to do a deal. Mr. Chairman, I look forward to hearing from today's nominees.
I thank the ranking member. Would you two please rise? Raise your right hands. You swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Do you agree to appear and testify before any fully constituted committee of this Congress? Thank you. Please take your seats. Again, we welcome you to the committee. As I'd said, feel free to introduce family members or friends. Ms. Lewis, if you'd begin your testimony, try to keep it to close to 5 minutes. Thank you.
Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Toomey, distinguished members of this committee. I'm honored to appear before you today and deeply humbled by the faith that President Biden has placed in me as his nominee to serve as president of the Export-Import Bank of the United States. As a proud Georgian, I'm extremely pleased to testify before my home state senators, Ossoff and Warnock. I grew up in rural Georgia in a family dedicated to public service. My mom and dad, Charlie and Alethea Lewis, were small business owners and community leaders who instilled in my siblings and me the value of work. And although my parents are no longer with us, I know they would be extremely proud that I will have the opportunity to support small businesses across this great country if confirmed. And while I currently reside in Washington, D.C., I have never lost my small town roots. As all Georgians know, Georgia is always on our minds. I would also like to acknowledge my siblings, Leontine and Sharma, and Charlie, who is watching virtually, who are here with me today, as well as friends and family watching who have provided me with their steadfast support. As a member of the leadership team at the German Marshall Fund, I'm keenly aware of the deep connections between Ex-Im and its role in the implementation of the Marshall Plan. If confirmed, I hope to harness this history and lead the agency into a new historic era through inclusiveness, transparency, and consistent collaboration. Throughout my career, I have sought to connect the best of America with the world. I have led effective teams in supporting America's businesses and built international partnerships shaped by American values. I have worked to expand inclusiveness in foreign policy, including through the participation in the Leadership Council for Women in National Security, my work in the Transatlantic Inclusion Leaders Network, and the Council on Foreign Relations. During my tenure as the first ever Special Representative for Global Intergovernmental Affairs at the Department of State, I witnessed the immense positive impact that Americans can have on the world. I saw the generous spirit of our citizens, our willingness to embrace different cultures, and our ability to move the world forward by working in common purpose with our friends and allies. I've also seen the vital role that entrepreneurs and their workers play in building a strong middle class. While leading strategic alliances at the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and through my work as an attorney, I help connect small, minority, and women-owned businesses and their organizations with resources and networks to foster strategic alliances and opportunities. I heard their stories and ensured that they were brought into the dialogue on vital business policy matters. I pursued this work with a spirit of collaboration and bipartisanship. Together, my experiences taught me an essential truth, that Americans are the most hardworking, strongest people on earth. And in return, they ask that those of us in positions of leadership stand up for them and create a level playing field. Today, I ask for your support, and I ask for the opportunity to fight for America's exporters at Ex-Im. If confirmed, I will lead with integrity, and I will work hard to open new markets and new exporting opportunities. America's exporters are in a competition to win the 21st century, and Ex-Im must stand shoulder to shoulder with them. As we work to recover from COVID-19 pandemic, Ex-Im must seize this opportunity to live up to its mission, and Ex-Im must partner with its sister agencies like DFC, USTDA, SBA, and MCC to enhance the global competitiveness of U.S. businesses and workers. XM must also renew its emphasis on supporting small businesses to help our country's economy build back better. If I'm fortunate enough to be confirmed, I will lead the agency with high standards for our stewardship of taxpayers' dollars, and I will work with all of you to fully implement the provisions of XM's 2019 reauthorization with a special focus on the areas that were reauthorized in 2019. Lastly, I will work to diversify XM's portfolio by broadening outreach efforts to key sectors and regions like sub-Saharan Africa. I will also use my bipartisan network to enhance collaboration with state and local elected officials in support of their work to create jobs in their communities. Thank you again for the opportunity to appear before you today and for your consideration of my nomination. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. I'm sorry your parents didn't live to see this moment. So, Ms. Bhargava.
Chairman Brown, Ranking Member Toomey, and distinguished members of the committee, I am honored and humbled to appear before you today as nominee for the Assistant Secretary for Administration at the Department of Housing and Urban Development. Allow me to begin by thanking President Biden and Secretary Fudge for the confidence and trust they have placed in me. I also thank the committee for scheduling this hearing and considering my nomination. I am here today because of my mother, who is joining me today, Rosa Bernard, a strong and determined woman who immigrated to the United States from the Dominican Republic. She raised my sisters and me as a single mom. I am forever grateful to her for teaching me the value of hard work and service. I am also grateful to my in-laws, Mom and Dad Bhargava, who are here with me today visiting from the great state of New Jersey, for being a constant source of strength and encouragement. To my siblings, nieces, nephews, friends, and mentors, thank you. Know that I cherish you all. My youngest sister, Salines, is here with me today. And finally, a special thank you to my husband, Neil, for his abiding love and unwavering support. I understand from direct personal experience the critical role HUD plays in the lives of everyday Americans. When I was 5, our home was destroyed by fire. And in an instant, my family and I were homeless. With no home, we felt vulnerable and challenged to meet the everyday demands of work, school, and life. We were fortunate enough to have the support of government and community groups, which allowed us to stay together and find safe and secure housing. The experience was a life lesson in the direct role government can play in supporting families and building communities. It is why I have dedicated my career to public service. The mission of HUD is to develop and manage programs that address America's critical housing needs. It provides support to avoid foreclosure, enable home ownership, ensure fair lending, enforce fair housing laws, and provide rental assistance to seniors, veterans, people with disabilities, and low to middle income Americans, like my own family. However, HUD faces its own challenges. Since 2012, HUD's workforce has decreased by almost 20%. And at the same time, the demand for HUD's services has increased substantially. As families emerge from a global pandemic, the need for the stability of good homes and strong communities. Strong leadership will be the key to ensuring program continuity and that HUD is able to meet its critical mission. I am a leader with more than 20 years of government experience and a proven track record delivering outcomes, which have directly improved the lives of the communities I have served. I began my career at the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and from there have held roles of increasing responsibility at the New York State Attorney General's Office, at the New York City Mayor's Office, at the New York City Council, and most recently as the New York State Deputy Secretary for Labor and Workforce. As the Deputy Secretary for Labor and Workforce, I was responsible for all labor and workforce policy and operations impacting almost 10 million working Americans across both public and the private sector. I managed a portfolio of 9 agencies and task forces operating with a combined budget of more than $5 billion. My leadership enabled the growth of a diverse, inclusive, and talented workforce of 170,000 state workers across 96 state agencies. My responsibilities included negotiating with more than a dozen unions, managing risk for the state, and ensuring compliance with federal, state, and local labor laws. My years of government leadership and management experience have made me realize that consistency, efficacy, curiosity, and humility are the cornerstones of impactful public service. If confirmed, I commit to working with the Secretary, the Deputy Secretary, colleagues at HUD, and stakeholders to ensure the success of the department by securing the qualified staff and the resources that are needed to administer the programs that are so critical to the families across this great nation. If confirmed, it would be a distinct honor to serve as Assistant Secretary for Administration at HUD. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Ms. Barger. I'll start with Ms. Reed. Ms. Lewis, as you know, XM fully reopened for business under former President Reed in 2019. The bank has steadily worked to rebuild its support for American businesses despite the challenges of the pandemic. There is surely tremendous opportunity for XM to support American manufacturing in the years ahead. If you would outline, Ms. Lewis, if you're confirmed, how do you use this position to support and increase some manufacturing jobs in our country?
You know, Senator, first, thank you so much for this hearing. I really enjoyed the conversation when you and I had an opportunity to visit and talk about XM. You know, as you know, if confirmed, I see one of my top priorities is to always be aligned with the mission of XM to support goods and services and those manufactured here in the United States. To support U.S. workers and jobs would be an honor for me. I'm the daughter of small business owners. I believe that the work that I have done over my career has been with an intersection between economic security and national security. So it would be important to help expand outreach, education, and about the access and about the information and the products and services that XM provides, especially to small businesses. I believe that XM must also be very intentional in the focus that we have on small business, because oftentimes there is a disconnect between the USG and its customers. And so working in a interagency coordination with the sister agencies as well as with Commerce and Treasury would be a way, if confirmed, I would love to do this work, as well as I would seek to support the competitiveness of U.S. goods and services in the face of aggressive foreign ECA activities.
So, thank you. Ms. Lewis, how do you make up for the stupidity and corruption of U.S.-China policy for 3 decades, where U.S. businesses lobbied Congress for tax breaks and trade policy that encouraged U.S. companies to shut down production in the United States, move overseas, set up production there, and sell products back to the U.S.? I mean, that's what happened to places like central Pennsylvania and northeast Ohio, and why our population has stagnated because of so many lost manufacturing jobs, because of a globalization brought on by greed and really good lobbying of the Congress. How do you turn that around?
You know, Senator, my experiences at the State Department, traveling and working in China, I believe has given me some very invaluable insights into China's political system and its economy. I look at the program that Congress put in place for XM to focus on, the creation of the China and Transformational Export Program. That was in the 2019 when Congress recognized the importance of XM as both a tool to compete with China and one to help build and keep manufacturing here in the United States. I believe this program can help ensure American-made exports are not being put at a competitive disadvantage due to unfair financing by foreign ECAs. So instead, they are able to compete on their quality and Americans' values.
Thank you. Ms. Bhargava, between 2010 and 2019, HUD staffing declined 22%. The previous Marcia Fudge, the director or Secretary Fudge's predecessor, had little knowledge, as we knew, and I voted to confirm him because he told me he would address the issues of lead-based paint and lead in pipes leading into homes where too many babies' brain development was arrested and slowed. But nonetheless, he showed no interest in the agency and no interest in housing. HUD needs more staff to oversee loan programs, to make sure housing's maintained, to administer critical funding. What do you do to ensure that HUD has the people it needs to fulfill its mission?
Thank you, Chairman, for that question. It is critical for HUD to have sufficient staff in order to accomplish the critical mission that it has. We are facing, as you stated, an increase in demand of services and a decrease of staff. Having an overview and an assessment across the agency of what is taking place to focus on the hiring and understanding that we need a robust plan to hire, but at the same time, looking at retaining the staff. And so my focus would be to do a full assessment, to look at the talent acquisition that is needed so that all programs are able to accomplish their mission, but at the same time, look at what's going on with the workplace and ensure that it is a place that people are excited to work, that people want to come to work, and that we can retain the workers once we attract them.
Thank you, Senator Toomey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just for the record, I want to point out the vast majority of lost manufacturing jobs in America are the result of automation, not trade. Manufacturing went through an experience very similar to agriculture. 100 years ago, a large majority of Americans worked on farms. But the arrival of tractors and automation made people far more productive, so now we have very small percentage of Americans working on farms, and they produce more agricultural goods than ever, just as we produce more manufactured product than ever. But let's talk about the shoe mark. As I noted, the Biden administration originally asked for $40 billion for public housing. Senator Schumer doubled that number to 80, which appears to be because of New York City's housing authority wanting $40 billion all for itself. So now it looks like half of all the bill's public housing money is effectively a Chuck Schumer earmark, or a shoe mark as I like to call it, a bailout of a single public housing agency with a history of sex scandals, bribery, and general incompetence. Ms. Bhargava, I know you used to work for the Speaker of the New York City Council, and I'm sure you're familiar with issues surrounding New York City housing. I assume you would acknowledge that the New York City Housing Authority does not provide half of all the public housing in America. You can acknowledge that, right? It's a simple, factual matter.
I'm sorry, Ranking Member Toomey, can you repeat the question?
The question is, can you acknowledge that the New York City Housing Authority provides less than half of all the housing, the public housing that's provided across America?
Ranking Member Toomey, I can't answer that question because I don't know.
All right. It's much less than half. It's closer to 20%. The bill that our Democratic colleagues are contemplating waives the formula that's in the current law for allocating the federal dollars among the various public agencies, and that means that Secretary Fudge will have complete discretion in determining which agencies receive the money and how much they get. Now, if you take my word for it that the City of New York provides far less than half of America's public housing, would it nevertheless seem fair for the Secretary of HUD to direct half of all this money to New York City alone?
Ranking Member Toomey, This subject matter would not be under my responsibility, would be under the Office of Public and Indian Housing.
Okay. Let's move on to the question of work requirements. As I mentioned in my opening statements, that there appear not to be any work requirements, including for able-bodied adults who have no children and no dependents. Now, some have suggested that attaching work requirements to these kinds of public assistance programs are not necessary because everyone wants to work, naturally. Well, let me be clear, first of all, many, many people who receive federal housing assistance do, in fact, work. I certainly acknowledge that, but not all of them. And if it's true that these subsidies don't reduce incentives to work because people already want to work, then what's the objection of requiring able-bodied people with no dependents to either be working or at least seeking work as a condition for getting taxpayer-funded housing benefits? Do you support a work requirement of that sort for public housing?
Ranking Member Toomey, I don't have specifics on that. It's not part of what my responsibilities would be as Assistant Secretary for Administration.
I think as a senior person at Housing and Urban Development, your views on that matter really are important. So I will submit a question in writing, and I would welcome your response and hope that it would be, in fact, directly from you. Let me turn to the Exim Bank. Ms. Lewis, you've stated that protection of taxpayer dollars would be a key priority for you. I think that's a direct quote. But in conversations with my staff, you were asked whether you support the Biden administration's request to double Exim's statutory default cap from the current 2% to 4%. How does doubling the permissible rate of defaults protect taxpayers?
Yes, Senator. I would support an increase that the Biden administration has put forward. I believe that XM remains a critical tool in our government's toolkit, and if confirmed, I would commit to making sure that I understand the impact that COVID has had on the portfolio. Yep. I'm not privy to all of the details, but in this time of economic upheaval, I believe there's a critical role for XM to play.
Okay, I understand that you believe XM has a critical role, but I was asking a much more specific question, which is, how is it that doubling the permitted failure rate on these loans is in any way consistent with protecting taxpayers? Let me ask one last question, which is a little different. I mentioned in my opening comments about this very recent transaction occurred this year in which XM guaranteed, for the benefit of J.P. Morgan, an $82 million transaction to fund Qantas Airlines' purchase of jet engines built by General Electric. So J.P. Morgan is fundamentally in the business of intermediating risk. Qantas was hailed by Fortune magazine in June of this year as being one of the world's most financially secure airlines, and General Electric can obviously access credit in many, many ways. So all three of these companies easily, routinely access private capital markets as a normal course of business. And yet XM's authorizing statute clearly states that XM, and I quote, should supplement and encourage and not compete with private capital. So given this statutory mandate to not compete with private capital, doesn't this transaction contradict that part of XM's mission, Ms. Lewis?
Senator, not being at the bank, as you know, I would not want to speak specifically about a transaction that I am not intimately aware of. I want to be more confident when I would want to come and speak with you. But, you know, XM's mission to level the playing field and in support of jobs for the sake of U.S. competitiveness, I think that XM has to pay very close attention to how other foreign governments are financing their exports. I understand that you and some in Congress may have a concern around the deals involving larger companies, but I also understand that those companies would lose export sales to foreign competitors that may be supported by their own ECAs if XM is not there.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Toomey. Senator Cortez Masto from Nevada is recognized from her office.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the nominees, congratulations on your nominations. Ms. Lewis, let me start with you. Since President Biden took office, the economy has created more than 4 million jobs with an average of more than 830,000 new jobs over the last 3 months. In the first half of the year, the economy grew at the fastest rate we've seen in nearly 40 years. Yet COVID-19 exposed the weakness of the world's supply chains. When most products we purchase come from abroad, primarily China, we can see shortages when manufacturers or ports shut down. So, Ms. Lewis, how does the Export-Import Bank help all types of U.S. manufacturers grow their jobs, increase their revenue, and compete in international markets?
Senator, first of all, I'd like to thank you for your staff, the visit, the conversation that I had with them. One of the things that I have always believed in all of the travels that I have interacted with other leaders abroad is that how they see U.S. businesses and American-made goods and services, believing that they are the best in the world. And in many cases, they have to compete against foreign products backed by foreign ECAs. And so since Congress has directed XM to help U.S. exports compete fairly in the international market, if a foreign competitor can sell to a foreign buyer with the support of their government-backed ECA and the U.S. exporter cannot, that is ultimately a loss for American jobs. So XM financing ensures that the U.S. exporters can sell their goods on a level playing field and are not being put, I believe, at a competitive disadvantage due to other foreign governments' backed export financings.
And so as companies seek to make their supply chain more resilient and selecting reliable and high-quality manufacturers in the USA will be more important, how can XM help U.S. manufacturing firms find new customers abroad?
Senator, I am aware that as part of the work that is going on in the Biden-Harris administration, that questions have been arisen as to a role that any of XM's financing would do about exporting to support domestic projects. I realize that there could be a gap that could be filled. And if confirmed, I commit to working with the XM staff and your office to review what some of those could be, those look like. And I would also want to receive your input as to how you could see XM continuing to fulfill its mission and purpose.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And I know you're referring to in June, the Biden administration actually released a 100-day review of federal agencies' abilities to build resilient supply chains, to revitalize American manufacturing and foster broad-based growth. So thank you for your commitment to working with the administration to really address these issues. Again, thank you for your willingness to serve. Ms. Bargava, let me ask you this. In Northern Nevada, the previous administration closed our regional HUD office, eliminating 3 positions and a vital housing resource for my state. If confirmed, will you work with my office to hire new staff for field policy, public housing, and community planning and development for Nevada, as requested in a letter from nearly the entire Nevada delegation in January of 2020?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. Having staff in the field is extremely important. The staff on the field, they are our eyes and ears. They can report on issues in real time. And so I think it would be extremely important for us to do a review, see what is needed, invest in the staff that's in the field. And so I would definitely have a conversation with the secretary if confirmed and work with your office to address your concerns.
Thank you. I know since 2012, HUD has lost about 20% of its staff, which is losing some of its expertise and capacity at a time when we need to address affordable housing needs across this country, including in Nevada. It's been really kind of my priority since I've been in the Senate to address this need. So I look forward to working with you on all of these issues. Again, thank you to both of you for your willingness to serve. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Cortez Masto. Senator Kennedy from Louisiana is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Lewis, congratulations on your nomination. Tell me one change you plan to make at XM if you're confirmed.
First of all, Senator, thank you for the visit that you and I had to talk about XM. I really appreciated that opportunity. Not being at the agency, I do not want to, I want to be really confident when I talk about changes that should be made. I think I would want to review all of the policies and the procedures to see where we are before making that type of change. But one thing that I would commit to you is that I think that we would have to be very intentional in the work that we do and intentional in the work that we are mandated to do around reforms, around being prudent stewards of taxpayers' dollars, and also how.
Could I ask you to do one thing? And I really am sorry to interrupt you, but we have so little time. One of the things I'd ask you to look at, why in God's name are we using taxpayer money to subsidize J.P. Morgan? Would you look at that?
Yes, Senator, I commit to reviewing that with the XM staff.
Yeah, I mean, I understand it didn't happen under your watch, but I think Senator Toomey raises a very good question. And doesn't seem to me the right answer is because China has state-supported businesses. That doesn't mean we should as well, okay? Ms. Bhargava, am I saying your name right?
Yes, Senator, you are.
Okay. Tell me, in your opinion, why San Francisco has become the unsheltered homeless capital of the world.
Thank you, Senator, for the question. The most important thing about homelessness for HUD is having the sufficient staff to be able to address those concerns, having the program staff, having.
So you think it's because we don't have enough staff? But why have so many homeless people gone to San Francisco? Have you ever thought about this?
Senator, I think homelessness is an issue across the country. I think there are several reasons why homelessness happens, but I think the most important and critical thing for us, if confirmed, I would want to focus on a staff that can address the seriousness of homelessness.
Can you think of another reason other than, in your opinion, we don't have enough staff? I would, a little surprised. I thought you were going to say we need to put more money into housing as opposed to more bureaucracy. That surprises me a little bit.
Senator, it is critical and important that we get the resources that we need in order to address such a serious issue.
So you think we're not spending enough money on it, on staff?
Senator, I think we need the staff to focus on the issue and finding solutions to focus on the issue.
Okay. Let me ask you this. If somebody is under the age of 55 in America, an American citizen, and they don't have children, and they're not disabled, do you think before they receive government assistance, they should be encouraged and are required to get a job, given that we've got 10 million job openings in America?
Senator, I think that those are issues that are being taken very seriously by HUD.
I'm asking
and
what
being
you
considered.
think. You're going to be a senior official at HUD. What do you think? It's a pretty straightforward question.
Thank you, Senator. I think I will work with everyone at HUD to be able to address these issues.
What do you think the answer is?
Senator, I think the answer is not an easy one, but I think we have dedicated staff and we have,
So we need more staff to study that one too?
Senator, I think we have staff that at HUD that would be able to think about ways to support.
And you don't have an opinion about whether somebody who's relatively young, childless, and healthy before receiving taxpayer money should be asked to get a job? You don't have an opinion about that, and you're going to be a senior official at HUD?
Senator, I think that I don't have the specifics about what is required, and I think we have staff at HUD that would be able to really focus on the specifics of the question.
Oh, my God. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Menendez is recognized from New Jersey for 5.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. Barkova, in recent years, HUD relocated its multifamily housing staff from the office in Newark to the New York regional office. You're now the second nominee before this committee who comes from New York. New York and New Jersey have a very different housing needs and challenges. We need to have adequate HUD boots on the ground that are familiar with New Jersey's unique needs. So what steps will you take to ensure that the Newark office has the staff that it needs and that New Jersey remains a priority at HUD?
Thank you, Senator, for the question. I'll take a quick moment to let you know that I am being joined by my in-laws who are from New Jersey and my husband. So they're very excited to meet you today. In response to your question, Senator, having staff in the field is critical for HUD to be able to accomplish its mission. The staff on the ground, they are our eyes and ears. They're able to report in real time and alert us to issues. So I understand how important they are. It's a place for residents to go to in need of services. I'm aware that the Obama administration undertook a transformation of multifamily housing, but it's been several years. So I think it's worth to take a look. If confirmed, I look forward to working with the Secretary and the Deputy Secretary and the staff at HUD to review whether we're investing enough on the field staff and other things that.
Well, I appreciate that, and it's great to have your relatives from New Jersey here. We're always thrilled to see that. But the problem is New York is like a huge vacuum for New Jersey residents and multifamily housing owners and tenants. It just does not get the attention it should. And I've asked this question of multiple HUD nominees, but your answer is specifically important because you're nominated to be the Assistant Secretary for Administration, which has a key role in staffing decisions. So I know you want to kick it all off until when you get there and talk to others, but I want to hear your commitment to me that if you are confirmed, if I'm going to vote for you and you're going to be confirmed, that you will look at this with an eye to making sure that New Jersey's housing needs are taken care of. And if that means staffing in the Newark office, we will either relocate as we were relocated out into New York, or we will add additional staff. Do I have that commitment from you?
Senator, you have a commitment from me that I will look into the matter as you described.
All right. Looking into the matter is not going to be sufficient for me. So I'm going to let you think about it, and I'm going to put this question to the record, and hopefully upon your review with others, you're going to give me a better answer than that. In 2016, HUD published an inclusive diversity strategy plan for improving diversity at HUD for the years 2017 to 2021. Their most recent federal equal opportunity recruitment program states that HUD has, quote, completed 95% of the goals and objectives outlined in that plan. While I'm pleased by the progress, a lot more needs to be done, particularly with regards to Hispanic hiring. If confirmed, how will you follow up on the work of this diversity plan? And in particular, how will you improve the department's recruitment of Hispanics?
Thank you, Senator, for your question. I'm not familiar with the 2016 plan, but I am familiar with the executive order that was signed by the president that focuses on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility. And I look forward, if confirmed, to ensuring that that executive order is that we are committed at HUD and that it is implemented across the agency with a focus on recruitment, on retention, on workplace. The executive order is quite detailed, so I look forward to.
I hope you will take, and I said this to the secretary as well when she was before us, Latinos are underrepresented in this department, well underrepresented compared to the percentage of the population. So we have to do better. Diversity has many different elements to it, and one of it is as Latinos. So particularly in the role that you're going to play, I hope that you will pay close attention to that. One last question, Ms. Lewis. The most recent EXIM competitiveness report noted that only 14.6% of EXIM's direct small business support went to minority and women-owned businesses. There's a mountain of evidence that the businesses were among the hardest hit by the pandemic, so it's critical that they have the access to the tools and assistance to remain competitive. If you're confirmed, what would you do to improve accessibility of EXIM services for minority and women-owned businesses?
Senator, absolutely. One of my top priorities is not just about small businesses, but also drilling down about MWOBs. Exactly correct about being the hardest hit during this pandemic. I have an extensive background focusing on outreach to that community that have had very tangible results. I look at the fact that we would need to make sure we're operating in a whole of government approach, working stronger with our interagency partners, collaborating with the large businesses to make sure we educate their businesses in the supply chain, understanding that even though we've been through COVID, digital is not going to be enough. But more importantly, Senator, I would also want to seek your input as to how to reach into that community, as well as working, I believe, with the work that I've done with governors and mayors and county executives and the organizations that represent them, especially those that target minority communities and minority businesses, would be a way to reach deeper into those communities, along with working with their state economic development agencies.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, I have a series of other questions. I'll submit them for the record, and hopefully these nominees will give me a full answer. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Senator. And Senator Ossoff from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes from his office.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, and congratulations to the nominees. It is a particular pleasure to welcome you, Ms. Lewis, as a Georgia native with a JD from Emory University School of Law. My wife is a graduate of the School of Medicine there and UGA alum as well. Congratulations again. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to ask you some questions focused on our home state of Georgia. As you likely know, Georgia not only became one of the top 10 exporting states in 2020, it's also a key innovator in the aerospace industry with over 800 aerospace companies in our state. Aerospace products have been among Georgia's top exports for years, $9.98 billion in exports in 2020, and companies like Thrush Aircraft, based in Albany, are providing products used around the world. Will you commit, please, Ms. Lewis, to working with my office so companies like Thrush Aircraft in Albany and Gulfstream Aerospace in Savannah can export more Georgia-made products around the world?
I would commit to working with you, Senator, and other members of this committee on those types of issues.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And Georgia is also rapidly becoming a global leader in clean energy manufacturing and technology. We host in Georgia, in Dalton, the largest solar module production facility in the Western Hemisphere. We have one of the country's largest electric vehicle battery plants in Commerce, Georgia. My goal is to make Georgia the national leader in clean energy technology, and that means exporting the clean energy products we manufacture in Georgia around the world. So I want to ask you a similar question. Will you commit to working with me and business leaders in Georgia who are producing clean energy products to maximize their opportunities to export these products?
Yes, Senator, I would commit to you and working with other members on this committee especially since the Congress placed a high priority on XM working with exporters and foreign buyers to support clean and renewable energy exports.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. We've also seen significant growth in Georgia's automotive sector. Automotive exports in Georgia in 2020 increased 38% to $4.45 billion, supporting thousands of jobs across the state. The Kia plant in West Point, Georgia manufactures 40% of Kia's cars worldwide. Will you commit to working with my office and Mayor Trammell of West Point to help bolster automotive exports from cities like West Point, Columbus, and Macon, Georgia?
I commit to working with you, Senator, and other members of this committee to work very closely with your state and local leaders.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Georgia is also a hub for technological innovation. We host the Georgia Cyber Center, which is a $100 million cybersecurity facility in Augusta, Georgia. We host Atlanta's Tech Square, which is a central location for technological innovation. With the increasing threat posed by cyber attacks and ransomware and network intrusions, supporting Georgia's businesses that produce cybersecurity products is vital. And so I'd like to ask you for a commitment to work with my office and key leaders in Georgia and to join me for a discussion with the leadership at Georgia's Cyber Center in Augusta to help determine how Georgia can export more cybersecurity products from places like Augusta and Atlanta to foreign markets.
Senator, I commit to working with you and other members of this committee on those types of transformational exports issues.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. And my final question focuses on agriculture. As you well know, as a Georgia native, Georgia is the nation's largest supplier of pecans, accounting for about a third of U.S. pecan production. And pecan suppliers exist across the state, from Fort Valley to Athens to Albany. How can you work with me and agricultural leaders and farmers in Georgia, Ms. Lewis, to ensure that Georgia's pecan industry remains competitive and to work with those farmers around Fort Valley, around Athens, around Albany, and other major pecan-producing regions of the state to help Georgia pecans continue to grow as a worldwide agricultural staple commodity?
Senator, not only do I commit to working with you in the XM's 2019 reauthorization, it specifically targeted a focus for XM on rural communities, and also the work that we would have to do with supporting all industries in all sectors. I commit to you that as a review of the work that I would like to review the work that we're currently doing and be able to seek your input as to any ideas you would have for us in those areas.
Thank you, Ms. Lewis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Thank you, Senator Ossoff. Senator Tillis' camera was on and then back off, and if Senator Tillis is here, he will be recognized for 5 minutes from his office. If not, Senator Van Hollen from Maryland is recognized for 5 minutes from his office.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Toomey, and congratulations to both of our nominees here today. Ms. Lewis, I had a couple questions for you, starting with the fact that as XM continues to implement the China and Transformational Exports Program, the CTEP program, to help U.S. exporters compete abroad, especially in the face of China's Belt and Road Initiative, what are some of the metrics that you would look to in measuring how we're faring against China in this competition?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. I will say right off, I'm not at the agency to understand the type of metrics that they use, but with the creation of the China and Transformational Export Program that was put in XM's reauthorization, I am pleased to know that there is a dedicated staff who is part of a whole of government approach into competing with China. And if confirmed, I would look forward to learning more about the status of the program and also the metrics that are being used to make sure that we are being as effective in the implementation in the support of U.S. jobs and U.S. workers.
No, I appreciate that. Well, if you could get back to me maybe on some of the metrics that you think we should be looking at, because we've got to judge the success of this program against whatever metrics we decide make sense. So I would appreciate a little bit more as we go forward on this. I certainly recognize you're not there yet, and I appreciate that fact. But any additional thoughts you have there would be helpful now. A number of my colleagues have mentioned the issue of exports, U.S. exports of clean energy products. As we look around the world, we see that foreign export credit support for renewable energy projects continues to dwarf XM's activity. Despite the fact that XM set for itself a 5% goal to finance renewable energy products and help foster U.S. jobs in that industry here at home. We're nowhere close, and it's not just China. If you look at India, they also have a very robust export credit program. I realize that XM suffered from a lack of a quorum for many, many years, but I believe we have to work overtime now to recover and achieve that goal. What are some of your thoughts as to what can be done to achieve our goal of the 5% financing for renewable energy products?
Senator, absolutely. One of the things I think right off is that, I believe that climate change is a real threat, and it's an urgent threat that is requiring a whole of government approach. And so when Congress placed a high priority of XM working with foreign buyers to support clean and renewable energy deals, I think you made it clear that you wanted that Congress wanted XM to make sure that we were looking at how we would do that work. I would want to review currently what is going on at XM, and if confirmed, I would want to look at how we are being very mindful of our mission to support U.S. jobs through exports. I would want to, after a review, come back and talk with you, Senator, and seek your ideas about how we can remain as committed to investing, for XM to be investing in the energy solutions of the future.
Well, I appreciate the commitment. We've just got to close the gap between commitment and reality, and I hope you'll work to do that. Ms. Bhargava, you look over the next 5 years, you'll see that almost half of HUD's workforce will reach retirement eligibility. And I guess my question to you is, given this change, which will happen over this 5-year period, what can we do to attract the next generation of HUD's workforce with the skills that are needed to help modernize HUD's agency? And what can you do to help bring in the next generation of HUD employees?
Thank you for that question, Senator. I'm excited. There is a lot to do in thinking about the priorities for HUD and as Assistant Secretary, if confirmed, for administration. I would focus on the people. I would focus not only on hiring, but also retaining. And with that, I would focus on the workplace culture. I think the workplace culture is key in attracting the best, the most qualified, and also retaining the staff. Because if we're attracting them, we have to make sure that they stay. And so thinking about succession planning, which is what you are raising, is also ensuring that we don't have institutional knowledge that is walking out the door with our staff that is maybe retiring. And so with that, I think that there's a lot of opportunity. I'm also excited about the systems and the standards that we can put forth. I'm excited about the prospect. I think my vision is that HUD is the best agency, the one that all federal employees want to end up working in. And I look forward to working with the secretary, with the deputy secretary, with the staff, in implementing a plan like that.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Van Hollen, if you, Senator Warnock is on the way, is probably 2 minutes away. If you have another question you'd like to ask, feel free before he gets here as a fellow Georgian.
Well, no, I appreciate that, Mr. Chairman. Unfortunately, I've got to run to something, but I do appreciate the statements of both these nominees, and I may have some follow-up questions for the record.
Okay. Anything you want to ask? Well, thank you for joining us very much, and for your candor in answering these questions. Productive discussion of the issues, I thought. I hope we can work together as a committee to move forward quickly in the nominations of these two very highly qualified people. I hope the controversy, I mean, disagreements certainly, but the real controversy on the Ex-Im Bank is mostly behind us with the leadership of Ms. Reed, and now I hope the leadership of you, Ms. Lewis. For senators who wish to submit questions for the hearing, those questions are due at the close of business on Thursday, October 28th. To the nominees, we'd like to have your responses by Monday, November 1st. With that, the hearing is adjourned.